Well, BRICS Bank has issued South African bonds at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. The bank has been able to raise 1.7 billion as part of raising funds for infrastructure in South Africa. This comes ahead of the BRICS Summit next week, where the bank will participate during the Business Summit in Johannesburg. For more on this story, let's now speak to Lesley Maasdorp, who is the Vice President of the BRICS Bank, who now joins us live. Lesley, good morning. Thank you so much for making time for us. Considering the numbers that you were able to reach during yesterday's auction, what do you make of these figures, and were you expecting that figure that we got there that is just above 2 billion, 2.67 billion?
Thank you very much for having me. So yesterday marked our entry into the South African bond market. We started this process already several years ago when the bank registered a 10 billion rand program on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. So this was the first issuance under that program. We very much intend to be a regular issuer in the South African market because, as you know, we finance infrastructure projects in South Africa. And we intend to raise in rand to finance many of these projects. So yesterday we raised in total 1.5 billion rand. We're very satisfied with this issue. There was very strong demand. Originally, our intention was to raise $1 billion, but because of the strong demand, more than $2.5 billion of orders, we increased the size of the offering to 1.5 billion rand. So in short, we will use that 1.5 billion rand to finance sustainable infrastructure projects at home.
Okay, and just clarity on that, Lesley, does it mean the reports of 2.67 billion rand that has been raised are incorrect?
Yeah, no. That is the demand. So when you issue a bond, you have a sort of optimal size. So you have to make a trade-off between sort of size and pricing. So we issued this bond with sort of 3 and 5 year maturity. So the amount of money we raised, the size of the bond is $1.5 billion. We had strong demand, more than $2.5 billion of orders, potential interest in the bank's issuance.
Okay. And then on the two bonds that you've issued, now you've spoken about the 5-year note as well as the 3-year note. Are you able to tell us which of the two was more attractive?
As you know, with respect to financing, as you go into the longer term versus in the short term, the pricing differs. There was stronger demand for the longer term, for the 5 years, and we're very happy about that. Infrastructure projects, as you know, have longer maturities. So these loans that we typically advance, whether it be for ports projects or rail projects or solar projects, these are typically long-dated loans, sometimes 15 years, sometimes even longer. So the bank sort of on different intervals, we refinance these loans. So essentially, we are quite happy with issuing longer tenor bonds. We hope in future to also issue, for example, in a 7-year tenor. Overall, we were quite happy with the pricing as well because it shows the confidence that the investors have in the New Development Bank, which, as you know, is one of the highest rated issuers on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange.
Yeah. And just speak to us, Lesley, about these bonds that have been issued and rand denominated at that, and how this plays into a broader conversation that's taking place in BRICS as well around de-dollarization.
So each of our member countries, South Africa, as you know, has got very deep capital markets. We've got Johannesburg Stock Exchange, one of the best regulated financial markets in the world. Brazil, China, India, each of our countries are fairly, large emerging markets with very well-developed financial and capital markets. It's always been our strategy since 2015 when we started the bank to, as far as possible, to try and tap into the capital markets of our member countries. However, most of our loans, we are also led by our borrowers. Most of our loans, most of the requests for financing from our countries have been in US dollars. And because there are larger pools of US dollars, there's deeper pools of liquidity, if you like, we can raise money cheaper in dollars off the back of our high credit rating. So it's not very much, it's not a either or, if you like. We will continue to raise dollars, but at the same time, we will increase our focus on local currency financing. To give it sort of clear expression, about 70% of our funding we aim to raise in US dollars and other hard currencies like euro, British pounds, and so on. And then 30% we aim to raise in local currency, renminbi, Indian rupee, South African rand, and so on.
And it sounds very complex, with some even arguing that perhaps BRICS should come up with its own currency.
The longer-term aspiration of countries is indeed sort of along those lines, but creating new currencies, as you know, is a rather complex affair. You need to, harmonize your monetary policy of your central banks. It is not something you can do overnight. What we are aiming to do now is to promote the use of our currencies when we build infrastructure projects, and also greater use of our currencies for trade. As you know, China, Brazil, China, India, a number of countries have increased the use of their local currencies for trade. But creating a completely new currency, if you like, is a much more complex endeavor.
Yeah. And then on the rating agencies, the last report that I saw back in 2019, you had S&P as well as Fitch rating agencies rating the bank at a AA+. And one of the concerns that they raised was that the members of BRICS are 5 countries, which means it's too small, and therefore that's one of the concerns that they have. Now that there has been this interest that has been expressed by a number of countries to actually join BRICS, do you think that that rating could change, or would be able to convince these rating agencies why the new development bank should be given the top-notch rating?
I think aspirationally, in the medium to longer term, this bank wants to be a AAA institution. This has always been part of the dream and the desire of our founding fathers when the bank was created. AA plus is is the highest rating that we can obtain, given that we do not have AAA rated shareholders. It is indeed a factor. Rating agencies look at what they call concentration risk, meaning we have a small number of borrowers in a small number of countries. If there's sort of correlated risk, meaning if, let's say, there's a commodities crisis in the world, and many of our countries are commodity exporters, you could have a synchronized economic crisis, and you are then exposed to bigger risk as an institution. If you are more diversified, that allows you to, if your book is more diversified, it is safer from a probability of default perspective. However, the bank has already started the process of expansion. As you know, Egypt has joined the bank, Bangladesh have joined, United Arab Emirates, and now we've got a longer list of countries that have shown interest in the bank. So that will be positive for our institution in the medium to longer term, because we will bring in fresh capital from these countries, which means it boosts the bank's ability to do more lending, and it will also reduce our concentration risk. So overall, you are absolutely correct. The expansion of the bank will be a net positive, and that's the way the rating agencies will look at it.
Yeah. And a final one, the president of the bank, Dilma Rousseff, will be in the country next week. What can we expect from her?
I think the New Development Bank has a couple of priorities for the summit. Firstly, I think its new membership expansion. There will be several countries represented at the highest level at the BRICS summit. President Dilma Rousseff has already injected, if you like, further impetus and momentum, and accelerated the dialogue with many countries at the highest level to explore new countries to join the bank. That's number one. Secondly, many of the national development banks from Brazil, BNDES, from South Africa, DBSA, and so on, many of these institutions will be attending, and we want to deepen our partnership with these other institutions, looking at co-financing in the various countries and so on. And then thirdly, also very importantly, as I mentioned, local currency financing is a very important focus for us. We will continue our dialogue with the Indians and with other countries. India is hopefully going to be next in terms of rupee bond issuances. So we will use the time also to have strong dialogue with the ministries of finance of these countries to craft the next phase of our local currency issuances.
Thank you so much for your time. Lesley Maasdorp there, the Vice President of the BRICS Bank.